down and listen to records. Smell the cover, read all the verses. Tell me about your favorites on vinyl and vision.
Hey folks, thanks for tuning in to the latest episode of Vinyl and Vision. Here we are with episode 127. Today's very special guests are John Van Etten and Melvin Monroe, which are the duo that make up the Triceratops. So the Triceratops are a fairly new band from New York City. They are currently promoting their debut full-length record called Charge. But this album, Charge, is a pretty good one. When I speak to these guys in the interview that you're about to hear, I mentioned to them how I feel like the music that they make kind of currently reminds me mostly of something along the lines of Dinosaur Jr. or Sebadoh, something in that indie 90s kind of rock vein, which I think is true, and I think that they will corroborate that that's all, they'll agree with that statement. Though the album that we're going to be talking about tonight is Refused's The Shape of Punk to Come, which is also a very great record for a number of reasons. I do have my kind of issues with that album. Never been a fan of them. Didn't know anything about Refused going into this. Did a lot of research and found out a lot about them and a lot about that record. And so, the points will be made amongst in the conversation. So I won't get into that here, but I want you to know that the Triceratops are a great band. I'm very into their music right now. I think that it's a great album, and I think that you should at least listen to it, if not buy a copy on vinyl from Learning Curve Records. So yeah, I mean, I think this was a great conversation. We definitely had a long conversation. Those two guys are very, very talkative, and they were very fun. And there was a lot to talk about. I mean, if any of you know Refused and The Shape of Punk to Come, I mean, you can imagine there's probably a lot to talk about, whether you know a huge amount of the history or you know very little about them. There's, if you know the album at all and you like it, there's a lot of stuff going on there. So that's kind of what we do. And we hope you like it. And if you do, please do all the things you do with the internet. Like, share, subscribe, comment, rate, review, all of those things. They help us out immensely. They cost you nothing. That's a win-win situation. If you do care to kind of help us out in a financial way, we do not panhandle. We do not ask for money. We work for our money. So if you want to go to our website, psychicstatic.net, you can visit our web store where we have some records there for sale. And there's also a link to our eBay store, which is where we kind of have the majority of the stuff that we're selling right now and the most of the newer, fresher stuff. It's holiday season, a lot of stuff going up, a lot of stuff that's really, really good actually coming up very soon. So please bookmark it or whatever and visit it often, and you can find some of those deals. Without further ado, folks, thank you very much. Enjoy.
Hey,
Hey,
So how are you doing, guys?
I'm all right. What did I miss?
Not much.
no, just saying. Yeah, things are all right. Worried about the state of the world, and
I know.
other than that,
Yeah, man.
yeah.
Well, I mean, how are you feeling musically, at least then?
Oh,
Let's narrow it
yeah,
down.
yeah. Musically good. We're really happy the record is finally out. We've got some shows lined up, which are, getting harder and harder to get.
Mm.
But I'm when we get together, if what practice is going well, we, we're still, we've got new ideas. We've got it just, yeah, it feels good.
Okay. Melvin, how are you feeling?
I'm all right. I was just doing some workout I just bought a new bus.
A new bus?
So yeah, I've had a doozy of a year. So I had like a little shuttle bus, but back in the summer it was parked in Brooklyn, and it took 3 weeks to identify her, but this 19-year-old girl crashed her Mercedes into it and just destroyed it.
Oh,
And
man.
then yeah, she had her car towed away, and I turned into a detective for 3 weeks, and I finally found her. She's 19, didn't have insurance.
Oh boy.
Had the car was unregistered, had an illegal plate on it, had it towed away by an illegal tow company, and she just hit and run, like did so much criminal shit, and and the police don't want to get involved, so I'm suing her. I've never sued anyone in my whole life, but now I'm suing this 19-year-old waitress. We have court the same day as our record release show this Friday, and
Oh man.
yeah, it's gonna be
It's going to be an exciting day no matter which way you slice it.
yeah.
That's great.
Oh man, I'm sorry to hear. That's always, I can't imagine how much shit that must have to be to deal with.
I worked my ass off all summer, and I started a GoFundMe. A bunch of friends helped me out, and I bought a bus down in Florida, and I drove it up. I got in like 2 a.m. this morning,
Oh man.
and yeah,
Okay.
so I was out there. You have to take off. I wanted to buy a school bus, so you have to take
Right.
off like
Whoa.
the this little stop sign and all the school bus like things. You have to remove them. So I was just outside doing that.
So are you is that going to be the tour bus? Are you guys going to go touring on that thing?
No, the idea is that it's a tour bus. Like
Yeah,
that's what the last one was. And but this band's probably not going to do more. We have like 3 shows booked in November, and then unless somebody offers us a great opportunity, I guess it's not in the cards for. I would love to. John is
sure.
a family man,
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I am too. I
Yeah.
hear you. I
Oh
know what
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
like, man.
Yeah.
How many kids you got? You got kids?
Two. Yeah,
Oh.
two. I a 20-month-old and a 6-year-old.
Oh shit. So they're
Yeah.
little. Okay.
Yeah, little kids.
That's
So
serious.
all the good things that people say about it are true, and all the hard things people say about it are true.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have
Yeah.
kids?
I have two.
Oh, yeah. How old?
16 and 14.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
See,
Different world.
yeah, I just hear a whole new set of fears.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, like, look, the one thing that people don't tell you before you start having kids is this, like, you will endlessly be in fear, like for your whole life. Your whole
Yes.
life is just you worrying about them dying.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's a new kind of love. It's a new kind of fear.
Yeah, right.
As
So
well.
I'm actually going to talk to a guy very soon, I think, who's actually expecting a child like this
Oh, wow.
week
Oh,
or
wow.
maybe next week. So I don't know. We'll see how that turns out.
Yeah.
Or if it even happens, because it's very possible it might not happen. I don't know.
Yeah. We opened up for Julie Christmas 3 days after a younger son was born. And like I had to like ask my wife, like I asked her like 50 times, like, you're sure you're cool with me doing this?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, and it was, fine. So I just, took the next night.
Right, right.
She was recovered. We were home. Everything was good.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's I mean, look, if she could do it and she did it,
Hmm.
more power to her. God bless
Yeah.
her. You're a very lucky man, John.
Well, thank you. Yes.
Um,
I very much am.
yeah, so let's talk a little bit about music as far as like your backgrounds are concerned, because I'm very interested in what you guys are doing. First of all, like the music that you're making as the Triceratops, and the album that you chose to talk about tonight is also an interesting choice, I think. So tell me a little bit, John, you can start as far as like, born and raised, what were you listening to around the house?
So, one of my first memories is someone showing me a picture of a bug and saying, "That's not a beetle." Because I knew all the words to all the Beatles songs by like age 4. So that's sort of my DNA.
Yeah.
And then the satanic panic
Mm.
led me to Nirvana. So I grew up in a really small town in upstate New York, and if people didn't live through the satanic panic, for a few years everything was called satanic. That really infuriated my dad. That that people were calling Nirvana satanic. So I just remember like one time, like it was way past my bedtime. My dad burst through the door. It said, "Check out what I got," holding Bleach and Nevermind CDs. So then Nirvana, grunge. and then I really got into that. I had a band in high school called Whistle Pig, and played a lot of covers of alt rock stuff, and and then we put out a couple records, and then I got really into the 90s indie rock. I was a Guided by Voices super fan. I was on,
Hmm.
they had this mailing list, Postal Blowfish, that was like a uh it was a like a proto social media thing. When I moved to New York, I had already had a friend group because from this mailing list,
Hmm.
and I was in a few bands, and then I was in a band. I had a band called Strikes Again for a while. Um, towards the towards the end of the 90s, I was sort of getting a little disillusioned with indie rock. It was feeling a little um, precious, or like ironically distanced. Like there was an ironic distance
Sure.
um, to something like I guess Pavement would be, I love Pavement, but uh, that wasn't what I was looking for. And then I started working at CBGB's. That's where I met Josh, and started really getting into heavier stuff, like the noisier stuff. And that's where this brings us to Refused.
Okay.
Um, and there was zero irony there. There was like, or there was no distance. Like the music is so in your face, you know?
Refused, you mean?
Yeah, Refused,
Yeah.
noise rock in general more so, and
Oh, okay. So wait,
you know,
you're categorizing Refused as noise rock.
I
Yeah.
sure,
would have I would
sure.
never say that.
Really? Okay, I thought noise
Well,
rock was like an umbrella term.
I think that you're right. Yeah, sure. It can be an umbrella term, and I think that people that are teetering outside of something like whereas Refused is kind of a hardcore band
True.
that for this record specifically, melded a lot of genres and like really kind of like pushed themselves and even their fan base away from where they started as a hardcore band. Yes, I think maybe this record could be it could be under the umbrella of noise rock. Yeah, for that reason, just because like hardcore kids fucking don't know what to do with it for the most part.
Yeah, 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 and there, yeah. So there was immediacy, and but particularly hardcore New York hardcore.
Hmm,
It's like Refused. Like the lyrics are all very direct. They're saying what they mean.
sure.
Like, and with no obfuscation or coolness barrier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
So dug that. Then I was in a band called Tremors, and we put an album called Hitchcock, where just about every song was named after an Alfred Hitchcock movie. um,
Okay.
and they had varying degrees of relationship to the movie. And then that brings us to the Triceratops.
Okay, wait. So, a couple questions about your history. First of all, how old are you? Because your dad walks in with two Nirvana records.
I am 42.
Okay, so you're a couple years younger than I am. So, when your dad walks in with those Nirvana records, that's what? Is that 92?
No, it was after. It was also no, it was in utero. I didn't get into till it
Oh,
was
it was in
93.
utero.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was never mind in utero because it was because of the heart-shaped box video that made everyone call them satanic. So
Okay.
I was
Okay.
11.
Okay, so 93-ish is this?
Yeah, 93. Yeah.
Okay. So, you're 11-ish. He walks in. Now, you said you knew all the Beatles songs by four. Is that because of your dad?
Yeah, he grew up in he was a Navy brat, and he was in England like I think 63, 64, 65. So
Oh, okay.
so he saw the Beatles and the Who on the same stage. And all that, and so and like by and large, like so all that British invasion stuff is sort of lumped in there.
Yeah.
Um like the 60s
But so your dad's a big
rock stuff.
music fan.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
And your mom?
She's more into classical and jazz, and but She loves coming to the shows.
She's supportive. Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, she is, and she really genuinely loves our music. So
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, that's cool. So, okay, wait. So, Beatles at 4, Dad's influence. He turns you on to Nirvana, I guess.
yeah, and then and Sonic Youth was the other big one that
Okay.
we got at the time. We had this thing called Rock Video Monthly, where for like $3 a month they would send you a VHS of videos, and you could pick a genre.
What?
Yeah,
That's so
and
weird.
yeah, because this was midnight. We couldn't afford cable, so I didn't have MTV.
Okay.
And so one of the genres you could pick was alternative, and we didn't have, and they wouldn't have played these on MTV anyway. But that's how I got into Dinosaur Jr., Jesus Lizard,
Hmm.
The Breeders.
Oh,
I was
wild.
into before the Pixies for the Cannonball video. Was that?
This is the
Uh,
first time I've ever heard of this.
yeah, it was it was really cool. And it was like, do you remember those like really, did you see super flimsy VHSs? They looked
Super
like,
flimsy?
yeah, I don't know. The actual VHS looked like, if you touched it too hard, it would shatter,
Huh.
because it was very cheaply produced.
Okay. No, I'm
So,
not. I don't think so.
so yeah, yeah. So that got me into stuff. At that point, I was, getting cognizant and seeking things out myself.
Hmm.
Um, uh, Always loved classical music too. And that was another big sort of part of my education too.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I played stand-up bass in high school, or elementary school through high school.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah, yeah. So and then I started a band without we started a band without a bass. So
Yeah.
here we are.
Okay. All right. Melvin, you want to chime in here?
Uh, I grew up here in New York, mostly out in Jamaica, Queens, where there's like a lot of hip hop. And I was also um super against hip hop.
Yeah.
Like, it's like all my bullies were listening to hip hop, so I didn't fuck with that music. But I guess like my mom was listening to Dylan and Beatles and stuff like that growing up, but I kind of remember her putting on a Bob Dylan record a lot, and I definitely like remember hearing Beatles in the car. But like, I'm gonna like really my first music memories are like, "C is for cookie, that's good enough for me." Like
Yeah.
children's music. That's all.
Sure.
Like the um, and then I think I mean, I don't know how old, but I remember at some point my big brother was like, "What do you mean, like you're not into your own music?" And he bought me like an Iowa Walkman, and I guess he wanted me to get into what he was listening to. So he got me like a Walkman with 3 tapes, and it was like Bruce Springsteen, Born in the USA, Terrence Trent D'Arby, and a Billy Joel tape.
Hmm. Okay.
And those are like my 3 tapes that I listened to in my little like Walkman,
Yeah.
walking to school for a while. And then I think I like coerced my mom into buying me some New Kids on the Block tapes and like Vanilla Ice, like very not cool stuff, like
Right. Yeah.
I shouldn't be admitting this.
No, it's cool. Wait, so how old were you at this time?
Oh, like 19. No, I'm kidding. Oh, I mean, so let me think. New Kids on the Block. I remember. So I didn't have MTV. Like my cousins, I would spend summers out in Los Angeles with my cousins. They had MTV, and then they would send me like 6-hour VHSs of just like hit record on MTV. And I remember like the first time I went down there, I was 9 or 10, and they were like, New Kids on the Block is for girls, right? And I was like, I like it. And I
Sure.
remember like of all those tapes they gave me, I remember like a Poison song a lot, and I remember that
Hmm.
you got to move those refrigerators. I
Oh
loved
yeah.
that
Dire
video.
Straits. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Um, I
Okay.
really
So,
like
so
did go ahead.
this is the 80s then.
Late 80s,
Okay.
yeah,
Late 80s.
and probably like 90, 91 as well. It wasn't until I was 12 when I was on a plane with my mom worked for Czechoslovak Airlines, and so she used to kind of like drag me around the world, and like I wasn't even like, most people would be like, you got to travel so much as a kid. Now I was like, oh God, we have to go to Prague this weekend, like, and so my mom's counterpart in Prague was this woman Vera, and she had a son Michael who was about my age, and we were hanging out, and that Freddie Mercury concert with like Metallica, Extreme. Do you remember this?
Yeah. Well, is this the tribute or is this when he was still
Uh,
alive?
no, there was the tribute concert.
Okay.
There's like a
Yeah.
Freddie Mercury tribute, and I just remember like that was fresh. So whatever year that was, like we were watching that on in Prague on TV there, and then we were like I liked Extreme, and I was like on the plane with him, and there was like 10 channels that you could plug your headphones into and listen to, and there's probably classical and jazz or whatever, and there was like a list of the songs
Hmm.
in the pamphlet. Like you open the pamphlet and it tells you like this station has these songs, and it's like a 6 or 7 hour flight, so you could listen to each station once through if you wanted to. But I remember I was like listening to this one, I was like, no, this one has Extreme whatever, and Michael was like, no, Nirvana, and I was like, what is Nirvana? And the first Nirvana song I heard was Come As You Are,
Uh-huh.
and it's actually also the first thing I ever taught myself how to play on guitar, and it's the first thing it's my first tattoo. It's like the notation for "Come as You Are" wrapped around my ankle.
Huh.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, I heard that on the plane. So they were like already big enough that they were like playing them on the plane, and I was like, "This is okay. To hell with Extreme."
Right. Okay.
Um, and it was he put me onto Metallica as well because they played that Freddie Mercury tribute, and I was really what's interesting is I had wanted to grow my hair long because I really liked Tonto from the Lone Ranger. And then I saw Jason Newsted with his long hair and the undershave, headbanging. And I was like, I really just have to grow my hair long. I was 12. So, like, at my bar mitzvah, like the day after I turned 13, I've got like hair like long enough that I can't put behind my ear.
Hmm.
And we were playing Nirvana and Metallica, like the songs I chose to play for my bar mitzvah DJ, like that was, and I got in trouble because of the word horny in Lithium.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
that'll
my
do it.
mom, yeah, my mom didn't screen it, and somebody pointed it out to her, and it was an issue. It was in the synagogue or whatever.
Oh well, there could be worse things, but so, luckily that was not so bad.
No, yeah, it could have been worse. It could have been moist vagina.
Yeah. Oh God. Um, yeah. So how did you get into drums? Like, what did you get into musically first as far as learning?
Guitar. It was Metallica that I
Oh, okay.
basically feel like Metallica taught me how to play guitar. Like I had picked up like tab books or tab like Guitar World magazine, and they had
Hmm.
like the tablature for Metallica songs like written out, and I was learning like the leads. Like I wanted to play the melodies, and it's funny, like my first band, the first guy I ever jammed with, like I couldn't play bar chord. He was like, I was just all about playing like Metallica leads, and I literally couldn't hold a bar chord.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
it was kind of like and then I wound up playing bass with him because I guess I had a single string kind of thing, and he needed a bass player. So my first band, I was playing bass, and we were basically like named after the town Nirvana was from, and we were basically a Nirvana cover band.
Hmm.
Like we didn't admit it because we called the songs different things and the words were different, but they were Nirvana songs. Like John saw us at CB's multiple times, you know?
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
Okay.
so he
it was a
he'll
lot of
attest.
fun.
It was fun, but it was Nirvana worship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, as far as drums, I'm gonna say that this record is actually one of the first times where I was like, hold on, drums are something more than just the rhythm. When I was like, and it was the first time where I listened to the drums and I was like, I want to do this.
Hmm.
Like the drummer on this record was like, I don't know. It's like I've never been a very lyrical person. Like I kind of remember this one time, my first year of high school, a bunch of kids were singing Pearl Jam's "Even Flow." Me, I don't know the words, but I didn't know the words at all. but I was like, I know the guitar riff, so I'm singing the guitar riff, and they're singing the words, so I was always kind of like musical, like, or music attracted to the guitar parts and stuff like that, and I never paid attention to kick or snare, like where they were placed or anything like that until this record. And I was like, oh, like right on the first song, halfway through, he's doing the punk beat, but there's like the snares like don't bat boom tap tap tap, and I'm just like, oh shit,
Hmm.
and then second time we repeat don't bat don't bat bat, he does a double hit, and I was just like, and then he does a roll on the fourth one, and I'm like, okay, this is smart, and then
Yeah.
like I instead of like learning every note and every guitar part and every bass line, I like learned every hit. And so I'd be like, and this record also is like, I was at the age when I got into this, I was like 19 when I'm like showing everybody, like, dude, you got to listen to this shit, And so we're like sitting in their car and we're just like, listen. And I'm like air drumming along with it. And they're like, Jesus, like, every fill, I'm just like, yeah, like this is, and I didn't play drums at all, but like this was why I wanted to play drums kind of.
Oh, so you were kind of learning it in your head. You were just kind of like memorizing all of the hits.
Oh, absolutely. Sitting on the subway air drumming,
So when's the
like
first time you tried to play it?
probably around the time that John and I discussed starting a Refused cover band in like the early 2000s. And I
Okay.
mean I tried to play drums with a coworker of ours, Luke, trying to do this death metal with a lisp kind of thing. It was called necrofecal consumption, but I mean I could not play the drums at all.
Yeah.
And and to take on the drumming on this record is it's ambitious. Like I just
Yeah,
couldn't. I
I would
Yeah.
say. Sure.
Even at this point, like I listen to it and I'm like, there's some parts where I don't know what he's doing here.
Hmm.
There's two parts on the record where I'm just like, what the hell just happened? Like I wouldn't even know how to play that still to this day. And I've seen them like 6 times. But
Really? Huh.
yeah. I also like I feel like I learned the drum parts on this record better than they did. Like on New Noise, there's on the verses, this is gonna be maybe annoying, but the kick pattern is like it's not just like and one and one, then it's one and one, then he switches back to one and he just two more times before the chorus, and
Yeah.
then and I love it, and I thought it has to be intentional. He did it the exact same way both times, right? But then when I saw them live 20 years later, whatever it was, he didn't do it at all. So he just, it's just a coincidence. Like he was doing it random, or he
Hmm.
forgot the plan, or just didn't care as much as I cared, Like,
Yeah. Well, he was older at this point, so maybe that has a little bit to do with it. Secondly,
you care less,
uh,
yeah.
I don't well no, I don't have the information written down, but I did remember I've listened to a lot of interviews about this band and about this record to prepare. And I know I remember somebody said that two of the members of the band were kind of the primary songwriters. And so he what's the drummer's name?
Um,
I don't have their
it's David Sandstrom.
Sandstrom. Okay.
Yeah.
So
What's funny is I regard him as my all-time favorite drummer, and I can never remember his name.
so it's Swedish name, that's why. I'll do it. Yeah. Well, so but him and somebody else in the band, I guess the guitar player, is it? They kind of like traded off drum duties. I mean, you have the record, so I mean like in the for the credits, there's like as far as drums are concerned, I mean, are there only two people that are credited for drums?
I, I've never concerned myself that much with those kinds of details about things, but
Hmm,
I remember like when I looked at this because I had the CD back then. I remember thinking that there was like a long list of players because there's like the guy who played upright is not the guy who played electric bass on the record, who was the
sure.
main bass player of the band, and then there was like horns on it, and they had the guy doing like all the electronic music stuff like that. These were different guys that weren't like the core members. So I remember just like there was like this long list, and I was like, it doesn't matter because I don't know any of these people.
Yeah. Okay. That's
But
I
I
mean
mean,
with good reason, sure.
it would take me it would take a magnifying glass for me to try to figure out if that information's in here.
Okay, all right. Is that that's a newer reissue of the record, I imagine? Yeah.
This came out when they re-released the CD with that like four-way, like the remastered record with the four-way speaker
Oh,
version, you know
right.
what I
Yeah. The
mean?
the 5.1 stereo surround sound
Oh,
version.
Maybe that's what it was, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I heard about that. I don't have it. I
I
don't.
didn't like I didn't like it. And it was funny because I remember this was one of the CDs that I had in my Discman all the time, and I was, skateboarding, and I was a horrible skateboarder, so I was eating shit all the time, and like the Discman would be in my back pocket, so I was always smashing Discmans and always smashing discs.
Yeah, of
And
course.
so I bought this record a few times, along with like Bark Market Records and Unsane Records and stuff. And I remember when I got the new CD, I was like, this sounds different, and I kind of hate it, like.
Hmm. Weird. Okay.
But I remember listening to it in a car. It is kind of cool. Like there's like a one point where like the sound just kind of it feels like it's running around you.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can imagine. I mean, the production on this record is pretty fucking tight. I
yeah,
mean, like, there's no denying that.
yeah.
How they managed to get those sounds is a little debatable, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know how familiar you guys are with the production of this record, but I mean, from what I remember,
I have no idea. I don't know anything about those sort of things. Like knowing too much can ruin it for me.
sure.
Like I like the idea that they played these songs live and and put a couple mics on them, and like that's what I want to just believe with every record I listen to.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, we won't go too far into it then in that case. I mean, because I appreciate that. I
Oh,
understand.
it's
I mean,
okay. I'm old enough. I can handle a little disappointment.
yeah, well, I mean, I don't have the details in front of me anyway, but essentially, I mean, like this is one of the first like kind of digital, like they recorded onto tape, but it's one of the first digital programs that they were used. Fucking, I want to say it was like Sound Designed or something, like fucking whatever it is. But so they actually like did a lot of cutting and pasting. I mean, so even though they bounced to tape, they they did it was very groove heavy is what they said, right? So they kind of got a lot of the grooves down with the drums, and they did a lot of like kind of cutting and pasting and editing, and even lyrics, were like kind of cut to fit into like time with some of the instrumentation. So I mean, in a sense, it's a very digital recording.
Yeah, see that bums me out.
So
But
I don't care. Um,
Yeah.
I
but
think.
it
Sorry.
could explain a couple parts where it's just a part where I'm like, is this being played live? How is this? Like, yeah, I hear like snare rolls but you hear this constant like crash kind of rolling through it, and I'm just
Hmm.
like, it's like, it would make me feel better about myself if it was in fact like, if that crash was played after or something.
Yeah, right. I think that's very probable. I mean, I'm not sure about the crashes specifically, but yeah, I mean, it was highly edited.
I think I it doesn't bother me because I don't think art has to be sports. Like I approach music as like watching somebody do something incredible with their body.
Hmm.
And I'm perfectly happy if they had something in their head and they wanted to get it out there, however they did it, by any
Right.
means necessary.
Yeah. Okay. I found the information. It says that the shape was recorded on 24 track 2-inch tape and occasional ADATs in sync when the 24 tracks wasn't enough. The drums were recorded as grooves and then edited in Soundscape
Hmm.
without
Oh,
any grid reference.
wow.
So the whole thing was then bounced back to 2-inch where all guitars, basses were recorded. Same thing with vocals, but not every word moved around, more like keeping phrases that were within the groove. Yeah, the system was used back then. The soundscape system used back then held 12 tracks and was used as a standalone editing unit. Overall, the whole recording had the groove as the keyword. Maybe that's why it's still a cool record. So I mean, but I mean it's great. So I mean to speak to what you guys were saying, I mean like yeah, it's just a great record, and so however they made it doesn't even matter. It's just a matter of like kind of what it did to you guys. So let's go back because now both of you got turned on to this record at the same time when it came out, 98.
No, I think I mean they did tour on this record a little bit, and I found out about them. I remember our coworker Jamie, who's a sound guy at the club, he was like, "You got to check out this band. They just broke up."
Yeah.
So I'm thinking it was '99 or something. Whenever they had just broke up, you know.
Well, because they broke up just before the album came out, I believe.
Okay, so maybe it's '98.
So yeah. And so what about you, John?
Yeah, also we met working at CBGB's. We were stage managers, meaning there, like when you go see a show at a club, like the sound guy does the sound, and then he goes over and mics everything and switches the bands.
Yeah.
And at CBGB's, though, those were two jobs, and we were the going and miking the bands people.
That's what's called sound manager.
Stage manager.
Stage manager. Okay.
Yeah. Um, and so this was on heavy rotation at the club. And I remember the first thing that caught my ear was on Summer Holiday versus Punk Routine, like it sounded like Merchandise by Fugazi,
Mhm.
the opening riff. And so that sort of intrigued me. And so they would play this, and the other big one was Ziggy Stardust
Okay. Cool.
that was just in the heaviest rotation, and yeah, that's how I got into it.
Right. And so you guys were both working at CBGB's, and did you both start around the same time? Like when did you start working there?
I started there in '97, but January of '97.
Yeah, I was there from 99 to 2004. Yeah.
Wait, and so I mean then so you 97, I mean 97, John, you would have been uh
Uh,
no, 15?
yeah, I was yeah, I was 15 in 97. I came to I moved in 99. I moved
So
to
you were
this.
there at 99, so that's
Yeah.
you were
17. 17, yeah.
so you
Um,
started there, you were really young, you were a teenager.
yeah, yeah. There were multiple people. I was called Little John, and uh Melvin was called Little Melvin. She was-
They called me Little Josh.
Okay, yeah, sorry. I didn't want to reveal your secret identity.
Well, you already did earlier. You blew
Oh,
it.
did? Oh
That's right.
man,
That's
sorry.
right. I was confused.
Yeah,
I was just like, who's Josh? Josh isn't in the room.
Sorry.
I'm Josh.
Sorry.
I just so my other band, Fashion Week, I recorded and released a couple songs where I played all the instruments myself, and I just didn't like the all instruments by Josh Lozano kind of thing, you know. So
Mhm.
I just made up these other identities. And I decided I'm gonna like use them from now on. If I'm playing drums, I'm going by Melvin.
Okay.
And it really it's not a secret, you know. It's like
Yeah.
I haven't made personalities and social media pages for Melvin or Lonnie Torres, the bass player.
Oh,
Um, I just that's who gets the credit, you know, on
Sure. Right, right. I mean,
in print.
that's an interesting kind of perspective because so you were obviously you can play everything.
yes, you can.
I mean, I don't play any reed instruments.
Sure, sure. I mean, all the major rock instruments, bass
Mhm.
guitar, drums, you
Sure, yeah.
sing.
Yeah, Josh on our record, he also plays guitar and piano.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that great work in there. I mean, like, so I mean, one of the main things that kind of caught my ear about your band, aside from the cover, obviously, because that's probably the first thing I saw, was listening to the music, and it kind of speaks to 90s era, indie rock, indie pop rock, whatever you want to call it. So when I kind of got in touch with you guys about doing this and discussing an album, and you guys mentioned Refuse, I was just like, well, from what I hear from this record, I mean, like the Triceratops sounds more akin to like, Dinosaur Jr. or Sebado. How like Refused must have some kind of strange importance on your youth, to for you guys to kind of agree that it's an important and influential record to what you make, because it's not like the Triceratops necessarily.
Um, it's fine. I listened to the where Christian from Horrors talked about Meantime, and he said, "Well, I chose this record because it kind of sounds like our band. So if you listen to this, you'll
Right.
probably like our band. And I thought, oh man. um,
No, but it's
but
fine. I
yeah,
like it because I'm interested in what makes,
yeah.
musicians tick as far as like how did you even come up with this? I mean, you know,
We call ourselves noise pop. So we take a lot of the sonic elements from hardcore and noise rock in general, like the oral qualities of it,
sure.
and stick a major scale on it. Um,
Okay.
that Refused comes up a lot in practice. Like we say, oh, how about the Refused thing? And then we like that just comes up a lot. Where the other thing is the amount of variety on this record.
Mm,
Um, like we have a lot of different sounds on our record. So Andrew Schneider, who is genius producer, Unsane, Caven, Julie Christmas. Um, he helped us get a different guitar sound for every song. We've got a few acoustic tracks,
hmm.
and this idea of like breaking up the noise and like or just having sort of like your head all over the place. I
Yeah.
like yeah, so and I really think it helps with re-listenability. Uh
I think it's funny. I hadn't even considered that this isn't a band we sound like, you know? It's but the way like the Beatles are kind of like I would say John's music. If you were to ask primitive John what's music, it's the Beatles, right? For me, what's music is Nirvana. You know what I mean? Like it's that's the basis of all music, and sort of the basis of all music I've learned. It grew, like Nirvana did the split with the Jesus Lizards, and then I was like, "What's this?" I bought the split, and then I bought the Jesus Lizard record, and then now I have a Jesus Lizard tattoo, and then like what's this band on Christopher Selleck's shirt? Dinosaur Jr. Gotta buy one of those CDs. Gotta check that out. Like
Hmm.
everything musically grew from Nirvana, and I do think that is audible as fuck on our record and our songs. But that was that's the core, like that's the musical DNA of where like what grew. My concept of music comes from Nirvana, but it's like I don't even remember the last time I listened to Nirvana. But
Right, right.
I more now I listen to like I still listen to this record all the time. You know, I would like if you say what's your favorite band, it's gonna be a toss up between Refused and Botch. Maybe also ISIS, but I don't even listen to ISIS as much as I did. But it's also in the dark sense of music, that's part of my DNA.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean that makes sense. I mean, you're at the age where, you're close enough to me where, Nirvana was like the fucking band that really opened it up for all of us.
yeah.
How old are you?
44.
So I'll be 45 in a month.
Yeah. So I mean, like, when Nevermind came out, because that's the first Nirvana record I heard, I understand that Bleach came out before that, but to be honest, I was of the age where,
Yeah.
Nevermind was the first one I got to hear, and that was what, 91. So I was like 11. To speak to your point, like, yeah, like everything I've learned ever since came from them, specifically because of fucking Kurt. Because, like,
Yeah.
every interview you ever saw or read with him, he just went over lists of bands that he was inspired by, and you're like, oh, which one did he say? Oh, right, I gotta go find the Vaselines, I gotta go find Melvins, I gotta go find Jesus Lizard, and all this shit, and like, yeah, and now here we are, decades later, and we're like, obsessed with all those bands that kind of came
Yeah.
from his influence.
Yeah. There's such a humility and well, a sense of your like, and also like really placed them in a lineage in a way. I hadn't like in terms of he was the first guy who said like if you like if you like us, you will like them. This is the basic, and
Yeah.
um, giving credit where credit is due. Uh, that was really important, and yeah, educated us.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
I think it's funny that you said if you were gonna compare I think the first band you compared us to was Dinosaur Jr.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that the band is named after a dinosaur. And I mean, I've got two Dinosaur Jr. tattoos. I'm wearing a hoodie, Dinosaur
Yeah,
Jr. hoodie.
I saw that.
Um, when we were recording the record, I wore a different Dinosaur Jr. shirt every single day. Like 17 days and I've got more,
Yeah.
like they're, I mean, fuck, they tie with Refused and Botch, um, but I don't understand because I agree. They're like, I would say if you like Dinosaur Jr., you might like us. But why? Because we don't have any solos, and we don't have like that style of vocals, So
Yeah.
but I totally agree. It's
There's
just like
something. Yeah, there's
there's
something
something.
there.
Yeah,
There's a better connection there than there is with Refused, I think.
for sure. Yeah.
Probably. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. Josh talked about going, he got Guitar World and learned all the solos. What I would do is I would go while my mom was in line at the grocery store, I would run over to the magazine section, stare at like and memorize the chord progression, and then as my mom left, and then I'd go home and try and play it.
Hmm.
So there was a strict limit to my abilities. So like, yeah, and my fingers only move so fast. Uh, and so I just like thought I'm just a rhythm guitar player, no leads for me. But then when it was a two piece and like you can't just have chords, so I really learned how to play leads and rhythm at the same time, which has stretched me in a way I haven't been stretched before.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, so to speak to your songwriting and your new record, Charge, the songs on it, so I really like the songs. I really, really do
Thank
like
you.
them. Now, because Melvin, you're telling me that you actually do a lot of you can play everything, and you did do the piano and what other instrument did you do on the record?
I played some guitar. I think just on distance, or
Yeah.
Yeah.
is it?
Well, so how do you
On
guys
the,
write songs? I mean, like, like I didn't. I thought John, you may have been the. I don't know why it was in my mind, but I thought you might have been the primary songwriter.
yeah. We say all songs by the Triceratops because like I come with sort of like the acoustic guitar version of the song, like
Hmm.
or just like I come with chords and vocal melody and lyrics, and I say I was sort of hearing this, and but then in the arranging of it, like they always transform into something that uh you know makes us say all songs by the Triceratops.
Yeah, yeah. No, no. Okay. So, I mean, obviously, so you both are very involved in the songwriting and arranging process.
Yeah, but yeah, and like basically like the arrangements I feel is so important it becomes songwriting. It should get a songwriting credit.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
how this the shape of the song goes. But yeah, I come up, with the initial idea usually.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, Josh, we have a one song on our EP, Orcas of the World Unite. Josh came up with that guitar riff
Okay. Cool.
before, yeah, which is great.
So there's potential there for both of you to do anything that you want, really.
Mhm.
Okay. I mean, and that kind of speaks to the record. I mean, because like I said, it's not I don't think it's like this album by Refused, but there are, significant breaks in the album where there is a lot of juxtapositions is I guess is the best way to describe it. The best track on the album, I think, as far as like, a good example of this that I'm talking about would probably be the song Something Done Right.
Oh, cool. Thanks.
That fucking brutal noise part that's in the middle of what seems like a kind of like a pop punk song.
I like that when I had rough mixes of the record, anybody I played it for, when it does sort of naturally grow into the bow 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 dun, 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 it that flows into it and then it stops and it's right back to that sort of like close hi-hat indie rock part.
Right.
And everybody just kind of smiles and giggles when we do it. And I love that.
Yeah.
Because I do think it's like we're like we it's almost not to say you got more angry, but there's more fuel and it gets more and more fueled. And then it's like, oh, you know what? We're back to this.
Yeah. Well, it shows such like versatility, I mean,
Thank you.
because you also, as you were saying, I mean, you have on this record, you have like these acoustic songs. They're just guitar, they're very balladesque. There's piano work, there's guitar, acoustic guitar. But then there's like the really kind of like hard and fast, abrasive punk songs. I mean, most of these songs are 2 minutes or under, like
Yeah.
it's
Oh
got a
yeah.
it's got a punk vibe to it, but you're embracing, kind of, I don't know,
You,
folky
Yeah.
tradition maybe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. My dad was in a folk band, so like he would play me folk songs growing up. So
Hmm.
there's definitely that. But yeah, and just in terms of the song length, the things we grew up on, also 60s pop. Like the Beatles didn't have a song over 3 minutes until their fifth album.
Hmm.
So with Ticket to Ride is 3 minutes and 1 second. Uh, but what's funny is on that Something Done Right. That's our epic, meaning it's 4.5 minutes long.
Oh,
So
okay.
if the people who are into heavy music laugh when it comes back to the indie rock part,
Right.
and the people who are into indie rock laugh when it gets to the super heavy part. So I
Sure.
love it.
Right, right. It's
Yeah,
challenging your audience. I mean, that's what Refused was doing with this album, The Shape of Punk to Come.
absolutely.
there's something that about this song that we discussed, and should we do it? Should we not do it? Is so we did that part where bow bow bow. It's kind of Melvinsy, and then it just stops, and we go into like the halftime breakdown.
Mhm.
And it's like we laughed every time we did it.
Yeah.
But we decided to do it because it's fun. But more often than not, before we went into the halftime breakdown, I would always go, which is kind of like right in the middle of this Refused record in New Noise. There's like a we.
Right.
And that's totally, we didn't put it on the record because it just would have
Uh,
been too silly. But I mean, I'm gonna do it on Friday when we play the song.
yeah.
Sure. That's
And
great.
there would have been the Refused influence.
But
Yeah.
yeah, we love things that bring a smile to people's face. And silly and awesome are not mutually exclusive in our
Right.
book.
Sure.
Or silly and serious,
Well,
that's how life is.
it's good to be able to kind of not take yourself too seriously.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
like, and I think that your songs are funny. I mean, like, like some of
Thank
the
you.
lyrical content. I mean, I think it actually is the same song. Unfortunately, that I keep on coming back to
Hey,
the
that's fine.
same one. But there's the lyrics in there about not needing your appendix, right? Because
Yeah.
as cavemen, we were just trying anything that was green.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. This is my that's my human pride song. Even though like it looks like the human experiment, is on track to fail. Still, I mean, we've come from a lot. And like I'm not a misanthrope. I don't when people hate humanity. My thing is that we are fragile creatures in a harsh universe. The
Hmm.
fact that in the face of that, the fact that we have any sort of drive for cooperation is amazing, you know,
Sure.
given what we're up against. So yeah, something done right is, if you want something done right, do it yourself. Like I still believe we have the ability to pull ourselves out of this, civilizational death spiral we're in. But we one of my big influences, not even a musician, Carl Sagan, his thing like in life, survival is the exception and extinction is the rule. So that song's basically like the odds are stacked against us, but now you can cut your appendix out with lasers. That's
Right.
pretty awesome.
We've made progress to a point where, we definitely have the means, the intelligence, the technology to strive and to persevere just about anything, but
Yeah.
we are still stupid humans and we
Oh yeah.
still, stick stupid things up our fucking noses and get them
Yeah.
stuck and God knows what and
Yeah.
you know.
Yes. Yeah, we do. And then I would add, like there is a social piece to it in the sense that um we get, and this will gets towards the political idealism of the
Mm,
album. um the reason we're the dominant species is because we're smart and we're social. Like octopuses aren't social. So they could be very smart, but they're not going to dominate the planet. Like the thing, like you put me against a tiger, I'm going to lose, but me and 20 of my friends have a chance.
right.
And
Sure.
that's why we're here. So there is a part of human nature, like even when people say that like there's no such thing as a selfless act because you're just doing it to make yourself feel good. Well, I think it's is a really pretty awesome thing about humans that helping people makes us feel good.
Hmm. Yeah, it's true. I should
I
hope
don't
so.
know who Carl Sagan is, but I
Okay,
have a record by a band called Carl Sagan Skate Shoes.
I'll have
Yeah,
to listen
I
to it.
forget. I know the name. I can't think of
Oh,
why I know it.
he's one of the like the biggest like pop scientists. He had this show Cosmos in the early 80s, but he also was instrumental in the creating the Voyager record, the record, the golden record that's
Oh, right,
sent into
right.
space.
Yep.
And a big like also debunker of things. I'm sure he got into science because he wanted to meet aliens, but he became the greatest debunker of UFO myths there was.
Huh.
And there's something about that I love.
Yeah.
Like that,
He wanted to prove them right, but he wound up proving everyone wrong.
Well, I think
well,
he just wanted to know that it's true. He wanted to be able to prove that it was true, and I guess maybe he's honest enough and has enough, I don't know, sense about him that he wouldn't be able to kind of profess aliens' existence if he couldn't prove in
mhm,
reality that they did exist, who would, beyond the reasonable doubt.
yeah.
Hmm. Okay. So now going back to being at CBGB's, let's just say, because obviously 98 was when this record came out and it was in heavy rotation at CBGB's where you were working.
Oh yeah,
Um,
so I started there. I was 17, and there was a sound guy there named Josh who was smaller than me. I'm like over 6 feet tall, but everyone called me Little Josh because I was in high school, you know.
right.
And then John, 2 years later, you started there, and were you in high school?
No, I was just out of high school.
I see. Um, yeah. So heavy rotation, basically in between, we would have most nights 8 bands, and so the sound guy would play whatever he felt like in between bands. And I don't ever remember hearing David Bowie there at all. But yeah, Refused was on a lot. Helmet, Melvins, The Jesus Lizard, and Unsane. But
Hmm.
yeah, there's a period when I know
Wow.
Jamie was playing The Shape of Punk to Come in between bands.
Yeah.
But
No, I think I remember reading in your bio that there was very, very little mention of Refuse, but there was a mention that, you when you guys got together and you started kind of first jamming together, you would, you focused on doing covers of Refused.
Yeah,
yeah, it never really happened. We talked
yeah.
about it, and then
Well, we had a practice or two.
yeah, we
That
worked on it. It wasn't great.
Yeah. Well, we weren't the ones that made it not materialize.
But
We were the ones who showed up to practice.
right, right. But I mean, so I mean, obviously it was. I mean, it's not like you guys wanted to be a Refused cover band, but I mean, you obviously both liked this band and this record enough that that kind of what is that what drew you together to start playing together in the first place?
Oh, at one point we wanted to be a Refused cover band.
Oh,
No,
Like
okay.
that was
we
our
were gonna
first.
call it, yeah. Our first plan was to be a Weezer cover band, but
Uh,
this was back, 20, I don't know about 20 years, but years before we actually started this band. Like
Yeah.
there was, I mean, that was when the club was still open and we could hang out, in between. I guess John was going to school and I was working several nights a week, and we got together a couple times, but nothing really happened from that. And the club closed, and I didn't see John for years,
Oh,
like
okay.
yeah,
like a decade. Like I don't, I mean, how long?
probably. Yeah, long time.
So then
Yeah. And
how did you reconnect?
you were working at, was it Irving Plaza?
Williamsburg Music Hall.
Williamsburg Music Hall. It was a Future of the Left show.
Hmm.
Uh, the band, Andy Felix's band after McCluskey. And I looked up on stage. Oh shit, there's Josh. And we exchanged numbers, and then
You know
everyone.
what's funny is I, I set them up for sound check, and I remember thinking like this guy kind of sounds like the guy from McCluskey. I didn't know the band. And then I saw you either in the crowd or in the bath. I think I saw you in the crowd and we said hi, but then we talked in the bathroom. You had recently been divorced. We talked about that for a minute, and then I was like, "So you're here for this band? This guy sounds like this band McCluskey. You'd probably like them." And John was like, "Yeah, of course I know McCluskey." And dumbass, this is the guy from McCluskey. And Yeah, I think that I was playing in a band in my band Fashion Week, and I think I don't know if we exchanged numbers, and I used back then I didn't have social media, so I would literally, and it's probably more effective than posting. I would text like everyone in my phone records and be like, "I'm playing Friday, please come."
Hmm.
My band's playing this night, please come. And John came, and that's sort of when we started like talking more, and we were like, we should jam, and
And I played bass for a tour with Fashion Week.
yeah, that
Uh,
happened. I think
yeah,
we
East
had we
Coast.
already like done some Triceratops work or no?
No, I don't think so. I think it was like a German of an idea. Like I knew.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so at some point I needed a bass player for a tour, and I asked John because I know he's a great player, and I saw his band Strikes Again many times. I played guitar for
Yeah.
Strikes Again for one
Yes, he
show
filled in show.
in a bear suit.
Yes, he played in a bear suit.
um
Huh.
But I probably, in those drives, maybe is when we might have budded the idea of actually getting together and playing some music, kind of like Future of the Left or McCluskey.
Maybe around then, but there was a lot sort of would get in the way of us doing stuff. And so like our first practice was actually the day Bowie died. So we're
Oh.
talking 2016. So we had a lot of stops and starts. But yeah, once eventually yeah, then it just sort of eventually came together.
Yeah. Wild. Okay. So I mean, so you guys have had kind of I mean,
And we wrote a song that day.
Yes. Yeah, it's actually on Conan Neutron's uh here's a new thing label sort of thing called Seismic Waves, and they
oh, okay.
on his the Seismic Waves compilation #1, there's a song called Procrastinating, and we wrote it, the musical part we wrote in the time it takes to play the song. The like so I was just going chunka chunka like randomly, and Josh said, "What was that? What'd you do?" And I said, this." Just do that, just loop that. And then he came in with this killer beat, and then we were just looking at each other, and we just both knew, like, okay, now it's when it comes in, and like, and then we came in big,
Mm-hmm.
and crashy and splashy, and then we're like, okay, now's when it goes down to the verse. um, and and then this is also, just through eye contact and facial expressions. And then we did a stop. We both stopped at the same time without doing anything. We both went to halftime at the same time without saying anything.
Huh.
And yeah,
So
it
that must have been like after the tour, because I think that there's a thing that happens between players when you're on tour that like you just sort of start to almost read each other's minds.
Sure.
When you played together a bunch of nights in a row, and so maybe we got together. We're like, hey, let's try another thing where I play drums. And I don't remember even if the recorded version of Procrastinating has um the drum roll, but I remember I did in between verses. Does it have it that like
well, we that's a good question. But if any case, because that song was cut from the record, you did take the little refuse snare fill and put it on our
on
most refused like
efficiency?
song.
Yeah, yeah.
Efficiency expert.
So yeah, there's an influence. Although the end of a song on this record, there's like a something like that, and we just do a more primitive version of that at the end of one of our songs, and
Okay.
in the middle of that song, Procrastinating. And
Hmm.
I remember we discussed it. I was like, oh, I like this. It's kind of like Refused. I remember
Hmm.
And
that discussion.
Okay.
yeah,
So
sorry.
we need to talk about this
Sure.
record.
Yeah.
Because I have a lot to say about this record, really.
Oh, me too.
Um, well, I mean, like, first of all, I mean, I'm going to ask some kind of maybe out there questions. So, and let's see where these go. But this is my first time listening to this record when you guys brought it
Oh,
to my
wow.
attention.
Cool.
So,
Really?
yeah, I've
Okay.
never I
Awesome.
never heard it before. I mean, like 98, I guess I was 18 years old. I definitely was getting into like heavy music, but I think by that point I was already kind of starting to meet a lot of people in the local music scene, a lot of artists and stuff like that, and that's when kind of like noise rock started to come in. So anything that was like kind of hardcore adjacent, I kind of really just steered clear of. but not to say that this is, a specific, like a solely hardcore record, but it definitely has those elements, and it has there's a lot of things I don't like about this record, and like I feel like it's a little dated in the sense that like especially for our age range, this is like a predecessor to like what ended up becoming new metal,
You
Hmm.
you know.
think?
I mean, don't you
I
think? I
think
mean, like time-wise, 98, like, you know, um
well,
I would blame Helmet for
sure.
for new
Sure,
yeah,
yeah.
metal.
Yeah, but they
Um,
interesting.
but they were also like a kind of an indie band. I mean, and I know they were on Interscope and that was kind of a major, but I mean like, they were like the
Interesting.
buzz band on MTV. They were not huge necessarily. They never reached that point of like arena stardom, but I mean, yeah, a lot of like metal bands like, Korn and Linkin Park is actually cites Refused and this
Oh
record as an
wow,
influence. Paramore cites this band as an influence, this record at least. So, I think there was a lot of bands that kind of came from this
hmm,
that were in that realm.
interesting.
yeah,
I had no idea.
I wouldn't have guessed. I
I
do think I remember thinking, and I didn't know about the Miles Davis record. But I remember like thinking like this is a like obnoxious title for a record. But then within a couple years, and then somebody was like, "Well, this is a tribute to the shape of jazz to come."
Right.
And I was
Yeah.
and
Ornette Coleman.
Ornette Coleman. Yeah.
oh, is that not Miles Davis?
Yeah. It's Ornette
I
Coleman.
blew I blew it.
That's okay.
Um, I remember I listened to it and I was like, this record does nothing for me. But I do think within a couple years, like they weren't wrong. Bands were. I mean,
Yeah, it seemed to
specifically Poison the Well and a
yeah,
lot of bands in that scene. I was like, these guys love Refused. Like
right. Yeah, I mean,
but I would have never guessed Linkin Park.
yep, yep. I mean, there was a couple of surprising ones. I mean, as a matter of fact, fucking Crazy Town covered their song.
Oh yeah,
I don't even know who that is.
yeah.
Crazy
I
Town is the band that does that butterfly song that samples the Red Hot
oh
Chili Peppers.
I know that's. I remember that song
Oh,
vaguely. Okay,
gross. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I
That's
know a Foo Fighters
yikes.
song called Butterflies.
Well,
I don't
Yeah.
know.
huh?
You don't want to know it. Trust me. I'm not going to play it for
Okay.
you or anything. Like it's kind of embarrassing. I mean, and even the lead singer, I think Dennis Liction, is that his name? Is that how you pronounce
Yeah,
it?
I'm not,
He was
I
pretty
don't
embarrassed that they covered the song. They
know.
covered New Noise actually.
Oh well. Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I
So
know that they played that song at like football games and stuff like that.
yeah,
Like
Yeah.
it's appealed to a larger
no, it's
demographic than the
and it's
punk and hardcore scene.
I mean, and just like you're saying, I mean, it certainly did kind of set a tone, I guess, because it was progressive in the sense that, maybe they were a little cocky, kind of taking the name on from Ornette Coleman's record and being as kind of I don't know, like blatant to even suggest that what they're doing is going to push the envelope of punk. But you're right. You're right. They were right in doing it. I mean, at least time has proven that to be true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. I never made the new metal connection. I don't I don't know those bands very well. They used to- Although we saw a lot of them at CDs.
I bet.
We that was you see the cool thing about CDs was they'd let anybody play.
Right.
And so it was always sort of as good as the music scene, was at the time. But not that anybody could play, and it was also the best sounding club in the city.
Hmm.
So anybody could play
That's a
and
fact.
sound amazing. So heard lots and lots of new metal bands, and that is my main exposure to the genre.
Yeah.
But
Okay. But none of them ever kind of did anything for you.
no, no, yeah, no, no. I mean, if it makes you happy, great. But yeah, that's not my thing.
Right. Right.
With the exception of Deftones, who I did like, I didn't like that genre at all.
Okay.
I just like none of those bands appealed to me, but except Deftones. The first few records I thought were great.
Right. But so now, like, I don't know. So, like, if I think about some of the tracks, I mean, most of their creativity with the structure of their songs. I mean, and challenging their audience with jazz elements. It's great stuff. But it also has very straightforward, hardcore elements. So they're always challenging the listener, you know? I mean, and so from my question for you is like, what do you think is the best part of a song? Is it better to know what's coming, or is it better to be surprised by what someone presents you with?
Well, you can kind of, and this is what I think Refuse does, you can kind of do both.
Hmm.
Because if you've got one element that's simple, you can sort of go crazy in other direct and in other, you've got space to go crazy other places.
Sure.
So like a lot of their riffs are like two notes, and then two or three notes, and that gives them space to do crazy time signature stuff, and so like the first song on our record, each verse has a completely different arrangement. And that's because we have a very simple, vocal melody, pop hook vocal melody to tie the room together.
Hmm.
Um, we want you to be able to we want you to be surprised, but we want you to be able to sort of get on board quickly. Like say, we're the Triceratops you ride, not the Triceratops that tramples you. Um, there's something in why is it that these things, whatever X thing is, and I like 4/4 time or whatever, or the major scale, the things what is it about these things that it can appeal to the most people possible?
Hmm.
Like what there is sort of a power there. And so I don't want to shy away from the obvious. Like if something feels, well, basically it's a feel thing. If something feels right, we'll we'll do it. And if whatever sounds cool at the time, basically is
Sure.
our.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a matter of better. I think it's gonna everything's gonna appeal to different people depending on like their mood or who they are and where their life. Like I remember, when I discovered this record and all the music I listened to back then, I wanted to be surprised and blown away every step. So I was like listening to the Dillinger Escape Plan. I remember this band, The End in Canada, where it was just like every change was like, no repeating parts, there's madness, and I loved it. And but now, and I don't know if it's getting older or just sort of like being, well, I don't think there's nothing that surprises me anymore, really. So maybe it's just I've been surprised by everything. So now I just want to, like, I listen to a lot of synthwave, like it's just
Hmm.
easy, it's almost easy listening, it's like, and it's very predictable, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh
Okay,
so I
well, so
think
let's ask this way. When you guys heard this record, I mean, did you appreciate the stranger elements like the electronica, introductions, and like the jazz elements that were, thrown in there and so forth?
I don't think I appreciated it, but I didn't mind it, well, the jazz elements, I wasn't conscious of it being jazz, I was sort of like, there's this little intro to the song, and it's like some like dun, 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 it was just sort of, it was almost like this is the intro to the song. I didn't know that it was jazz, like I had,
Right.
had zero knowledge of jazz. And I remember the track before New Noise, it's like electronic music. I remember thinking like, this is a throwaway track for me. I don't need this,
Yeah.
um and I was almost, actually, I would say I was bothered by the little electronic break right before the song kicks in, but it has live drums as well. The first time I was probably bothered by it, but I wasn't surprised by it because there's like that Mudhoney record that starts with like electronic music. And I was like, people are always doing this kind of stuff. I think, you
Mm.
know, Botch put some electronic music at the end of their record. Shai Hulud had some electronic stuff for everyone was putting like this, like, for me, it was almost like a joke. They're like, and we put this funny
Right.
thing here.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it did have that sort of quality of like skits on a hip hop album almost. Um, but personally, I don't, nothing against it, but I don't really listen to any electronica. But over the years, I've really come to appreciate them more. Um,
Oh, I love it now. It's like
yeah,
the record without those parts would be a tragedy, you know?
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
really helps the flow. And I also think in breaking up the sort of and breaking up the noise, um, again adds to the re-listenability of it.
Right.
Um, but like with they do still do keep it fairly atonal. So like it reminds me of what's the instrumental song on Dark Side of the Moon, the electronic thing.
Oh
The
shit. I can't remember.
yeah, but
We all know what you're
it's
talking
cool.
about. We just can't think of it.
Um,
I can't even think of it.
so, but yeah, like it's we're big on flow. That's the other thing, is
Mm,
that this is a sequenced like album, like this
right.
the sequence and how it just flows from everything. I'm huge on sequence and flow, and I love all like there's barely like Josh on this record was like, please can we have at least 1 second of space between this song and that song on certain things. No, but like things like Neutral Milk Hotel and the Airplane Over the Sea or Guided by Voices, Alien Lanes, things like that. I think the album is an art form in and
Sure.
of itself,
Right.
like is a medium. And then also like the how they break it up on the record, how it gets broken up into these sort of like 3 song suites.
Hmm.
Like it's with the, like I think every side is 3 songs. Um so yeah, it just like it without it, it wouldn't be the same record.
Sure. No, I mean, I completely agree with
No.
that. I mean, I think it's a masterful record, really, from beginning to end. I really like it. I really do like that. Like, I didn't know it, and I really do. I did like listening to it for the first time. I was definitely kind of blown away by it because there was so many, interesting parts about the record that stood out to me. And, it took me a while to like keep on listening to it to really kind of grasp what was happening when and like, and to just kind of appreciate what they were doing. And then obviously learning about the band and like, reading into their history and so forth, it added another layer of this like, wait, what is why like I don't know. I have issues with this band.
Oh,
So yeah, I mean,
please
so I mean,
educate us because I actually I don't know much about their history. So
well, so
please.
this is funny. I mean, because like, so you say you have a lot to say about this record. I'm kind of curious, like, what your impression is, kind of overall. Like, what do you think is like the important thing to mention about this record?
There is sort of this maximalist quality about it, like that when it goes hard, it goes like as hard can be in a lot
Sure,
of and they're um like the vol he's my favorite screamer. And there's something so like he's giving everything. Like everything is coming out and it's funny, Bowie is the same way. Like if you listen, like a lot of time Bowie is singing as hard as he can, like as hard
hmm,
and what we do, like when I write a song, I'll write the song and then I'll change the key so I can hit the biggest notes are notes I can hit well.
sure.
Like I can give it my all. Um but yeah, actually, geez, one thing to know about this record, I don't know.
Well, I mean, you don't have it doesn't have to be one, but I mean, like, what is it? What is it that's important about this record to you?
Just
I would never like introduce the record to somebody with like with an idea like that. That's not how I even think of things. Like I'm more of like a hey, let's sit down and listen to this together.
No, yeah, yeah,
And if you'll let me walk you through every part of every song,
yeah.
like
Sure,
I remember like Liberation Frequency just being like, all right, so you caught the first verse, right? And then you know the chorus, right? Do you need to hear them again? Because check it out. This last part is the drums and the guitars from the verse, but the bass line and the vocals from the chorus put together, like and people just be like, Jesus, Josh, you don't need to rewind it. I believe you, but
sure.
I'm like, no, 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 and then wait till you hear the next song, and I'll like the spoken word parts, like I know them in time perfectly, like, and
Right.
I'm more like just want to like talk someone through it. It's probably annoying as fuck, like someone like who knows all the words to a movie, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that happens. I mean, like when we're excited about records that we love, I mean, yeah, and especially when you're dealing with somebody that doesn't know that record, it's like, yeah, obviously you want to, kind of let them in on the secrets, let them in on what is so amazing about it to you that you've understood over time and kind of learned over the years as well. Um, but okay, but so the weird things about this band is that they seem very contrary. Like everything from the name of this record to the artwork of the record to elements that have definitely been influences on them that we can kind of like look back on and we're like, oh, that's kind of weird. The socialist aspect of their lyrics, like their politics, being so anti-capitalism, but at the same time, it's like you're in a fucking rock band. Come on, like, I mean, you don't sign a record deal and like expect to go on tour and like expect to make no money and be happy with it, and ultimately breaking up because their the tour that they were going on in support of this record was a massive failure. Like they weren't, nobody was showing up. It was poorly booked. They're playing basements. That's where they broke
Hmm.
up in Virginia.
Wow.
It's like, I mean,
Yeah, they played like a VFW in Long Island. Like I know people who were there.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just, I mean, because it sucks for a band, right? I mean, like we all have experienced that where like, you play a show to nobody or something. It's just like, but you've made this great record, you know, like you expect people to kind of like go insane over it. Doesn't happen till many years down the road, but I mean, like, at the time they were already like going through some major inner turmoil amongst band members. So like by the time they were recording this record, they were already kind of knew like the writing was on the wall. Like they weren't going to make it.
Hmm.
They forced themselves into a tour opening up for Frodis, I think it was, right? In
Hmm.
the US. Only made it like 6 dates, I believe it was, before they ultimately broke up. And like before the tour started, I think they already kind of knew like this isn't like we might not make it. Like we know we're gonna break up. Let's see how far we get. And they got to like, 6 dates in, 8 dates in to Virginia.
Huh. The,
It's funny that I've toured with the guitar player Frodis, and we didn't ever touch on that. You remember Brendan from SFA, John?
yes.
Yeah. So the first time I saw Dennis Lixon perform was with the International Noise Conspiracy, and I had to talk to him and tell him how much I love Refused. And he was like, I probably mentioned I worked at CB's, and he was like, "Do you know Brendan?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." And he was like, told me the story. Refused toured with SFA, like a full Europe tour.
Is that Super Furry Animals?
That's
No.
that's
FFFFA.
You,
stands for anything.
Oh,
it's
okay.
a hardcore band.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
they were New York City hatecore. But yeah, they were bigger in Europe than they were in the States, but like contemporary with like Cro-Mags, like around that time, or
Okay.
more, maybe more around the Snapcase time, or somewhere in between the two. But I don't. That was a bit of a tangent. Sorry. I don't think that having a capitalistic view or a political view necessarily means that you don't want to succeed or sell records or whatever. I also think that whatever we feel or believe, be it politically, we're all products of our environments. So as much as you might disagree with one thing or another, you're programmed to want or feel a certain way about things.
Hmm.
Um, but I mean, I don't think a band wanting to succeed and sell records and spread their messages is necessarily conflicting a capitalist message in the songs.
Right,
Uh,
right.
yeah, there's a super chunk line. This is not where we belong, but it's where we are right now. Find a place and settle down. You if you're so like we happen to share their politics, and if but if you can't pretend you're living in socialism, like you have to. you have to, deal with the conditions that are surrounding you. And like, yeah, to be a band, that means, being successful and making money,
Well,
you know.
yeah. I mean,
And
and unfortunately, see, that's the thing. So to be in a band and to be successful, you have to be making money, because everything fucking costs stuff. I mean, like, you look at some of these, the more successful and bigger acts that are playing, like, bigger venues and higher ticket prices. I mean, I don't unfortunately know exactly what they sent, like go home with every night, but the fact of the matter is like you see these ticket prices for like $50 and you're like, the place has got thousands of people in it at $50 a head. That's a fuck ton of money right there. But that's not all going to the band. They have to pay for, expenses. They have to pay for their crew and so
yeah,
forth and God knows what else. And so,
And the venue's taking a huge cut.
obviously, yeah, of course. So I mean, it's just like what they go home with is not necessarily in relation to what we see as like the ticket price and then head count.
the other
Also, most bands that like I think that would be discussed on the podcast or any of the bands we know, with the exception, I mean, I've gone to see Bruno Mars, but like any of the bands we see, even playing like the biggest venue in New York for that's not an arena is like Terminal 5, and whatever the ticket might cost, $50, $60, and let's say the capacity is 2 or even 3,000, like that is, and they sell it out. That's what they're gonna do in New York, and then they're gonna play the next day and play to 1,000 people in whatever city it might be, and it won't be until Chicago. So they might play 4 more shows before they get to Chicago, where they're going to do another 3,000 capacity room.
Sure. Right,
Like
right.
I think that, I mean, the Melvins are, I think, very successful, but they're playing 500 capacity rooms, and
Yeah.
in most cities they're not selling them out. Refused might do two shows at Terminal 5 in New York, but they're not doing anything like that in Cleveland,
Right, right.
so you might do a festival or do a certain city where you're gonna, make a good amount of money, and that's gonna cover flights for the 4 or 5 band members and the sound guy and whoever else you bring in from Sweden. But then you're not making good money on the other shows you're playing.
Sure, sure. I mean, but like I guess the main point is that like, very similar to like Rage Against the Machine. Okay. Like I love them. I loved the first two records I really like. But it's that thing. It's just like, okay, you guys are so anti-capitalism. You're so like, like politically charged. And, I understand that to get the message spread to the widest audience possible, you had to accept and even seek out a major label, deal. Um, as successful as they became, maybe wasn't what they were looking for, but at the same time, it's not like they were going to turn it away just because of their ideals.
it,
Sure.
and they donate a lot of that money.
Sure.
Like I think, Rage Against the Machine, Fugazi is another one, like with political lyrics that they're not going to be changing the world. Like the lyrics themselves aren't going to,
Sure.
start the revolution. But like with Fugazi, like every show they played was, and DC was a benefit. I mean, I guess I'm sort of like bringing up the sort of the opposite model of like with integrity, not doing the major label thing. Um,
Mhm.
but but yeah, I think the this is one of the things, Marx's goal was for us to have more free time. Like that is the goal of socialism and to communism, is that if we divide the labor equally, there's X amount of labor that takes, to produce all the goods and services we need. If that labor was divided equally and technology used appropriately, we could have a 10-hour work week.
Hmm.
You
Okay.
know, um, so and that would give you the time to be in music, to do music. But since that is not the case that we live in, like yeah, by any means necessary, I guess, is
Right.
my feeling,
Okay.
to get the time you need to make music.
Right, right. Okay, so well, that's a bigger point of like, uh not social norms as far as like work is concerned.
Mhm.
I mean like the the as far as what you're saying is Marxism is saying that like time is what we are striving for. Right. More so than like, we're not talking freedom, we're not talking about like political freedoms, we're not talking about anything like that. We're just like saying like,
No, actually,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. Free time means that. Like for Marx, communism was an anarchist state. The communism had no government. Socialism was supposed to transition us out of all the bad habits capitalism gave us, and so we evolved to the point where we don't need a government.
hmm
So yeah, and then so you have you work a few hours a week, and then he says something like, you can paint in the morning and build a house at night without ever being a painter or a carpenter. Human potential can flourish.
hmm. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, free time is a luxury, more maybe like the greatest one, you know.
Sure. Especially today. I mean, I think we're so deep into capitalism. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, who has free time? Like,
Mhm.
Yeah, I
I mean,
think
we're all doing this right now. This is
we
this
this
we're
is
all
business, man. We're
yeah.
we're
we
we're
we
selling
carved our
records.
time into
But
the
we are all of our generation is the most productive generation in American history and the least compensated generation in American history
Sure. Yeah.
comparable to how much we produce.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I can see that. I mean, I try to, I don't know. I guess to a certain point, like the whole ignorance is bliss thing is kind of like where I sit most of the time because I'm just like if I go too far into either direction, it's gonna lead to one extreme, like massive depression or extreme anxiety, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
oh, or both. Yeah, I
or
yeah.
I
both. Yeah.
love the Rage lyric though. If ignorance is bliss, then knock the smile off my face.
Mm,
That,
sure,
that's
that's a
on.
great one.
Yeah.
But uh I hope though also, like if you do not share these political views, then I hope the people who don't can, still appreciate the record or, our record or like I like conservative artists. I like, Johnny Ramone, Clint Eastwood.
Hmm.
um uh you know there is and what I think is that it's the politics is sort of like an animating force that just sort of gives them something to scream about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
And so
I mean, and he was kind of cocky at the time, at least as far as the lyricist and singer Dennis is concerned. I mean, I guess he was very cocky at the time that he was recording this record, where his political messaging was all that he cared about. He didn't care about the music at all,
oh
and that was one of the kind of major factors that was the wedge driving the band apart.
You
oh
know, I've been in a band like that where the singer didn't care at all about the music. It was about him getting his political message out. And
Mm,
the merch table had more like pamphlets and propaganda than
the
merch,
merch.
you know.
Yeah.
Um, and
oh,
he's completely taken an about face on his views. It's kind of sad. Um, I almost feel like the people who are most extreme in that way always sort of like flip flop in some way.
Well,
mm,
you have to at some point, right? And so that's again part of the contradiction of this band is that like so they broke up in 98. The album didn't do well. It was a commercial flop, but within the year, the record started selling. Started selling 20,000 units a year from
Wow.
from then till now. Like it still sells, pretty regularly.
mm.
And then so they reunite in what 2012 was it? And they get huge deals. They're getting festival deals at like Bonnaroo and Primavera and shit, which are I'm sure that were hefty paydays for them.
Mhm. Yeah. uh
They sold out their edge. No,
I,
nobody cares. But
I,
I remember being bummed. They did a couple shows at Terminal 5, and I had the privilege of driving them from Terminal 5 to, everyone loves St. Vitus, but around the same time St. Vitus opened, there was a venue called Acheron, which was a little more punk and a little more seedy than Vitus
Hmm.
and a little more accessible. It was like just 2 blocks from the train, and they had great shows. And Refuse played an after show at like 2 in the morning at Acheron after their second Terminal 5 show, which I don't know if it was their first US shows after the reunion, or when it was in that, but um I drove them in my first van. They didn't sign my guest book, those motherfuckers. Um uh so I have no proof, but I did, and they played Akron and they all had beers, and I was like, ah. But I think Dennis is still straight edge.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
I don't know if the whole band ever was, or if it was just him, or what. It's never been a big part of their identity.
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't know.
I man, I have to say I was probably as annoying as Dennis in my early 20s. Like I bet he was really annoyed the hell out of his bandmates the same way I annoyed the hell out of my friends, because you learn this stuff and you're like, oh wow, this is how the world works.
Right.
This is um and if only people knew, then they would
Right.
go. But I
And
think
and
that, yeah,
and therefore you share. And
yeah, yes, exactly. I think time has proven that that's not the case. That lyrics, I mean, their first song, their first album, or was no, the not the first songs to fan the flames of discontent was the title of their other record, was taken from, that was the pamphlet of songs that were union fight songs
oh,
in,
okay.
like, in the 20s and 30s, and they would just, for everybody to sing and stuff. And yeah, maybe if you're part of a real thing like the labor movement in the 20s and 30s, like, you know music can be a condiment in making progress. Like, it can, preaching to the choir can fire up the congregation, but uh it's not the driving force in what, you know in change. It wasn't, the times they didn't change because Bob Dylan sang about it. It was because of the mass movement that
Sure.
happened. And so, there's a lot of really political stuff on our record, but it's like, I'm under, no illusion that it's going to do anything um politically, except it's on my mind.
Sure.
It's the thing I'm that create, like, I get really pissed about. And it is like an animating force that sort of, that can push stuff out of you,
Right.
um uh the to the like the guy who, like, the Marx's polar opposite was, Ayn Rand. The guy who created Spider-Man was really into Ayn Rand, like, and I, do not agree with her views, but you can sort of feel it animating Steve Ditko, like in his drawing, like, you see this, like, rage at the world
Hmm.
that
Okay.
really comes through.
Yeah. Huh.
And yeah,
Have you go ahead.
so yeah, and like, and I love that. I love that. So I hope somebody who doesn't have a bone to pick with capitalism, a few to break, uh, can still enjoy the record.
I mean, I do,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing is it's like, I mean, I don't listen to albums kind of for the messaging necessarily. And like it's actually surprising to me that you're saying that your album the Triceratops Charge is has any political ideology at all. I didn't catch it. I mean, I followed along with most of the lyrics and I was been listening to it and I just didn't hear it.
Yeah, well, the main one, the most political one's neoliberal bedtime routine, was about, um, basically, the chorus is, hey kid, I know how much you hate that I get home so late.
Oh
That's
yeah.
about us all having to work more. And it happened to me like the I was on the train. I like my second job, got off early, and I was super excited about it, even though that meant I wouldn't get paid for it, because I could see my kid before he fell asleep.
Right.
And then the train broke down and I didn't. And the train and in New York City, there's a very specific reason why trains don't work, which is signal problem failures, and it could be fixed. But instead, a dozen people have an extra wing on their yacht, you know.
Right. Yeah.
And so just that, like, yeah, like I said, it's an animating force.
Well,
Hmm.
efficiency experts also kind of political.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's their most refused like song. Um, but yeah, but I do, and I mean, I don't know how song by song you want to go, but that is a great um that is a great opening line. You agree with it or not. Um and
Is
but
it
that yeah, sorry.
is it your
I've got
line?
no, sorry. Yeah. Yes, this is that's
Got a bone to
my last.
pick with capitalism.
I got a bone to pick with capitalism and a few to break.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, that's
Yeah.
from this album.
Yeah, that's from
But I'm
this album. Sorry,
saying,
yeah.
I thought you were talking about your song,
So
Existentialist. What is it called?
no, efficiency expert. So
Efficiency expert. I'm sorry.
these were the people who would choose who gets laid off in the night, like in Office Space. They're
Oh, okay.
not
Yeah.
gonna work here anymore, guys. And so the lyrics the lyrics of the verse are actually an anatomically accurate description of what office work does to your body.
Hmm.
Um, and like from sitting all day and being stressed out. And then, the chorus is because when we crash through your ceiling, we deserve what we're stealing. Um, so that's the word the most, Dennis Lixon like vocal delivery I have.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay.
uh,
So, let's see. We should probably talk about a couple of these
yeah,
tracks. I have
yes.
only a few questions for you based on some of the songs. Specifically, Liberation Frequency is one of the tracks I'd like to kind of touch on.
Mhm.
And I just kind of have it written down here that it says, "What a missed opportunity." I heard that this track was supposed to be the song they made the video for, and I
Hmm.
guess ultimately, be their first single. Um, as opposed to what was the
Yeah,
single, New Noise ended up becoming the
yeah,
single, right? So,
yeah. Sorry.
okay.
I don't
Um,
know like what a single is. I don't know what that means really.
but
Well, I was going to ask you. I mean, like, do you have any singles for your album? Uh,
oh yeah.
What is that to
We
we
will
released one song before the record came out, you
call
know.
We Will Shatter. That's sort of the one that people have been talking about. The opening track, Can't Stop Now, we have a video for. That's sort of up there. And then
Did
there's
you say Can't Stop Now?
no Can't Take You. Sorry, that was a Strikes Against song. Can't Take You. And um and then there's a song, I'll Go If You Go, which is really sort of actually brings us to the Liberation Frequency, which one thing, I mean, I think it's probably the most straightforward song on the record. But it really does the soft, loud, soft thing.
Yeah.
Like it is to me the ultimate soft, loud, soft song. It's like when the band kicks in on the chorus, it's almost like the singer also hit a distortion pedal.
Mm,
Everything just gets so huge.
right.
Um,
And
and
then at the end of the song they do both at the same time.
yeah, yeah, and which is something that happens. Like there's moments of restraint on this, like Summer Holiday versus Punk Routine also. Um, and I think that there's a lot of like potential energy built up in there, and like um it takes a lot of confidence, like I to not go all the way when you can. And I think the fact that they hold back also, just like the electronica and the different stuff, it adds to the re-listenability. and um but it also like the fact that they can go there and they're choosing not to,
Hmm.
like, yeah, it gives it, like I said, this like potential energy. It's like there's a tension there,
Yeah.
you
Okay.
know.
Sure. Well, then the next song, The Deadly Rhythm, this is probably a good example of that because this is the song that kind of incorporates a lot of probably the most jazz elements on the album. And I, for as a first time listener, I was just like super excited to see like a song on an album called The Deadly Rhythm. I was just like, what is this song gonna do? Like I hope that it lives up to its name. And it does. It's a really great song.
So
I think
with the deadly,
instrumentally that song is it's untouchable. Like I that's probably my favorite song on the record, maybe.
hmm,
Hmm. It's a good
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
yeah, it's like so with weird timing stuff, non-traditional time signatures, like there's the way of doing it uh like where you don't notice, like all you need is love, the verses in seven.
Hmm.
And then there's like the other way, like the Dillinger Escape Plan or something, which is I am going to throw you for a loop and I'm going to pull you in different directions and
Hmm.
do this. And this does something like one line on New Noise is we lack the motion to dance to the new beat. It comes in and it's like throws you for a loop, and then you get this, then you feel the groove. Like even though like so you are dancing to a new beat. It's sort of knocks you around, and then you sort of like you fly in and oh okay, here's how I bought my head to this, you
Right,
know,
right.
and you feel the whatever it is, the groove.
Yeah. Interesting point though. I heard it somewhere. I can't remember where it was that I heard it though, is that someone made a point to mention how this song starts off with like that jazz kind of
Uh-huh.
interlude or something,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it kind
Yeah.
of starts
Yeah.
off and you hear the jazz playing
Yeah.
that percussion
Hmm.
and it cuts right into them playing and
Yeah.
he's playing that beat. He's playing that rhythm.
That
So
yeah.
it's just like they're showing you that like we can do jazz just like these guys, but we're making it this new thing. We're kind of, incorporating hardcore into it.
So is that a sample?
The first part is, yeah,
Okay, I didn't know that.
I think so. I'm
Yeah,
pretty
yeah. I
sure it
think it's like
is.
Charlie Parker, maybe. Um, that's funny. Yeah, like I like thinking about it from like a haha, we can do this too. Like that's sort of we very well could be the motivation, but like I don't know. This to me it felt more like we were talking about Kurt Cobain, like saying like here's our lineage.
Oh
You
yeah, it's
know?
an homage, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's the thing too. I mean, so like a lot of the things that I have about this band is the whole homage thing, like and how much homage they pay to so many people. But like this,
Oh yeah, yeah,
so you know, this is basically where they got the album
yeah.
cover from.
So what is that?
This is Ryan the Coalition, also known as Rye Coalition,
Rock Coalition, yeah.
1994 release of their little 7-inch EP Teenage Dance Session.
I'm gonna have to get one of those.
Yeah.
I have it right here, man. You want it?
Yeah, I do.
That's good.
It's
But
been on my website
uh,
for sale for fucking years now.
Oh,
It's actually no
okay.
one's ever bought this thing.
how much
Oh
is it?
well,
I don't remember, but I mean,
well.
I don't know,
Is
a
it
few bucks. It's
hundreds?
We'll
not
race.
no, it's not expensive.
Race you
No, it's
to it.
not
I mean,
expensive at all,
I
actually.
will buy it
Okay,
after we sign off.
sure, sure. Go to
Hey,
my website.
I don't know Rye Coalition, but I know
Hardcore.
that yeah, I know
Yeah.
that they've been mentioned as an influence on Refused and Nation of Ulysses as well.
Yes, yep. I was going to
Who
mention them too.
I
Yeah,
don't know them either.
they're great.
Yeah. Um, interesting. I kind of when I heard it was something called Teenage Dance Session, I kind of figured it was sorry, my cat. I kind of figured and just by the style of the cover, I thought it was like some another like jazz thing from way back, but I didn't
It
realize
is. It is.
it is.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
Rye Coalition stole this idea from another album, which
oh,
was a 50s kind of like jazz or
okay,
bop album or something like that. Yeah.
okay,
So I mean, it's kind of vintage looking for a reason. I mean, I
yeah,
think that like in this artwork, like you can kind of see where there's like some legitimate old
Yeah.
photographs of like, teens.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
actually the album they stole it from was called Teenage Dance Session.
Hmm.
But then of
You
course
know,
they incorporate
Yeah.
their own band's image, but only like a little portion of it. So you can't even
Yeah.
see the band playing.
But yeah, that's interesting. They were paying homage to something like from 4 years prior,
Yeah,
or
yeah. I mean, it
three
was an
years prior.
influence, right? It was
Yeah.
an influence.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
and a lot of the Nation of Ulysses stuff. I mean, like if a lot of like some people will say like a lot of their usage of using the word baby in their lyrics is a very Nation of Ulysses thing.
Hmm.
You know, the Refused Party program I think is probably a very Nation of Ulysses influence because they were political in a sense. Obviously, Discord band, so DC kind of hardcore-ish band. They had a lot of this stuff. They like, the Nation Ulysses records, they used a lot of the kind of like spoken word, like like interludes into some of their songs. So there was a lot of like that aesthetic
Hmm.
that this album
and
has.
they were wearing suits as well, right?
They
Is that
did, yeah, they did graduate onto Suits eventually. Yeah,
I remember someone saying that that was the reason that Refused did it, but
it could be. Yeah, could be. Yeah, I think there's a lot. Like, I mean, so that they paid a lot of homage, a lot of respect to a lot of things. I mean, some people will say it's an homage of respect. Some people say it's just like it's a lifting. I don't really think that's necessarily the case, and then and I'm not going to, cite them as that. But it is interesting to like kind of like pull all these things together and see like how they or where this kind of came from.
Yeah. Yeah. That is interesting. Yeah. Well, so I don't know Nation of Ulysses either, so I will
Oh, you should listen to
got
them,
some,
dude.
yeah. They've always been on my list, but
Okay.
now
I
you
do
bumped
think
them
I
up my
checked them
list.
out.
What's
Um,
that?
I do think I checked them out the same week I checked out this band Moss Icon. I remember this tattoo artist told me to check them both out, and I remember not really liking either band.
Hmm.
But
Okay.
that could have just been. Yeah, I'm really crabby. Like sometimes I just
Sure.
uh,
Sometimes something doesn't rub you
sorry.
the right way. That's
Yeah.
okay.
Sorry, Mike. I don't know if you heard that. My cat stepped on the keyboard.
Oh, no, I didn't, but
Okay, good.
that's
Um,
cute. You guys
we
both have
both
your animals out.
yeah.
both have animals like interrupting the whole thing. I mean, this one's been demanding my attention the whole time.
Yeah, I've noticed that. It's great. Wonderful.
See. Um, yeah. So I'll do the James Bond villain thing.
Nice.
Of the cat stroking the cat. Summer holiday. If we're going in or in album order,
Go for it.
yeah, the summer holiday versus punk routine. Like I think that's another one where there's a tightness to it, and they don't get as big as they normally get.
Hmm.
Uh, and there, like I said, it's a great, it's a great catchy song, but also like I said, knowing that they can go there adds this sort of adds attention to not going there. Um, and again, I keep saying the breaking up this stuff, the re-listen, helps with listening to it over and over again. I mean, I really love Meantime. I love that record. I don't play it as much as I
Hmm.
play the Refused record. It's just I think the variety helps.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Meantime is kind of kind of one
Yeah.
speed. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, for
Summer holidays versus punk routine. I really like that title though. I mean, for me, it's kind of saying like, as a band, like, what is the difference between the two?
Mm.
Like when you're in a band and like that's your livelihood, let's call it, or back when you were like teens and 20 somethings and that's all that fucking mattered and you didn't have to worry about a family or anything.
Mhm.
It was just like you wouldn't go on vacation, like you would go on tour.
There
It's
you
just
go. Yep.
like, yeah, there's there's no
Yeah.
vacation for bands, for
Yeah.
young bands trying to make it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
th I think that Summer Holidays they were, and it's funny that you listened to them and you were like, oh, this sounds like Fugazi. I didn't know Fugazi when I got into this record.
Hmm.
So Summer Holidays is, I think, very much like we're gonna play a Fugazi song here, you know. But I at the time I didn't know that. And I
Yeah.
do think that they reined it in because they wanted to do a Fugazi sound for that track, I think.
Hmm.
Sure. I mean, that's possible. I don't know. I haven't got anything specifically in my research that, mentioned anything of that.
Yeah.
Let's move on to another song, New Noise.
Well, yeah. So this is the big single. It's been in a bunch of movies, TV shows.
So what
Uh,
Yeah.
makes a song a single? I just thought it was like
it,
I
if
mean,
the
it,
song
technically it's a marketing thing where the label will be like, that's the catchiest song on the album. Let's put that out so that, as a soul track, that's what we'll make the music video for. That's what will go to the radio stations and so forth. That's essentially what a single is.
ye-
okay.
well, I think it is one of the great riffs.
Great.
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Um, oh, I think another thing about this record is the riffs by and large pass the Beavis test, which is, could it be sung by Beavis? Like, um, but yeah, I for me it's up there with like You Really Got Me, like in terms of just it's like three notes
Yeah.
arranged in a way that
Yeah.
like the whole like well the why didn't anybody do this before like you
Right.
know the thing about it. And I mean it sort of does what the album it's sort of a thesis statement for the album, like it does what the album does in the song like so there's like just like the album is punctuated by electronic breaks, like this song is has electronic breaks built into it.
Right.
And keeping with the politics, the fact that it climaxes with crowd noise um, is cool. Um, and
Hmm.
then just at the end, like him just screaming the new beat over and over again, like that is a human being just giving everything they have left,
Right.
Yeah,
and
the song's over and you know what I mean? Like it feels like you're at a show and the singer fucking means it. You know what I mean? Like
Sure. Yeah. Well, so the one of the lyrics in this song that catches me, caught my ear was, "'Cause money buys the access and we can't pay the cost."
yeah, I'm not quite sure. It's funny, like that's a lyric I've sung along to plenty of times, and
Hmm.
I'm not sure what I kind of don't know what it means.
Yeah.
But
Well, 'cause, I mean, to go back to a point that I was trying to make about, like, the contradiction of seeking out fame. I feel like this is kind of it because, like, I feel like, fame and, like, kind of celebrity or whatever you want to call it is like, that money buys you access.
mm,
Like, money can buy you access into that world even. Like, you can pay to play. You can fucking, use money to sway people into your
yeah,
favor, essentially.
yeah,
But they're saying they can't pay it. They don't have the money for it,
mm,
which most of us don't.
yeah, yeah. That's like I can't uh you know since I've we can't pay the cost. I can't take that as anything other than literal. Like I think it's basically since I've known what money is, I've been stressed out about money.
Sure.
Like I can't remember a time in my life where I wasn't. Yeah, so we can't. It's
I love the nice words won't cover ugly actions, good frames won't save bad paintings.
Oh yeah, I like that one too.
yeah. But in terms of like interpreting lyrics and stuff, like I maybe like a year ago, the Dinosaur Jr. song "Feel the Pain."
Hmm.
Um, it just there's pretty much one line he says over and over again. I feel the pain of everyone, and then I feel nothing. And I thought, and about a year ago, I said to Josh, "Huh, that's actually a really good description what it is to be a depressed artist." Um, and then Josh was like, I really don't. I've never thought about the lyrics to that song. And I said, I haven't either until just now. In 20 years, we could sing you all the solos.
Uh-huh.
We covered it on that tour. And like it's one of our favorite songs, did not think about the lyrical content until
Sure.
very recently for a song that has one line.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, dude, I don't do it usually. Typically I
Mm.
don't. It's only when I do this show and I'm trying to like
Yeah.
analyze music and shit that I bother getting into the lyrics and unfortunately reading into them sometimes.
Yeah. Well, see, I will say that whenever I do what you do and read the lyrics, I most of the time I love it. Like most of the time it really does add another dimension. Like
Sure.
um and it takes like a concentrated effort as opposed to a concentrated effort that is slightly different from normally the way I listen to music, you know.
Certainly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because yeah, I mean you literally are reading along like
Mhm.
with the lyrics as they're being sung, you know. I mean
Yeah.
it's definitely a different experience and it definitely kind of opens your eyes to process,
Yeah.
to intent, to a number of different like ways to look at music really.
Yeah.
So I don't do it often. I only do it for this show really. But look, there's only a couple
Fun one,
more
works out.
points I'd really like to make before we wrap it up here actually. So I'd like to jump to refused or fucking dead.
Mhm.
I think I pronounced a G. I think it's supposed to be fucking, not
No.
fucking.
Oh yeah, how about
Um,
that? I never noticed that.
so digging into
Well,
the history of the band and the making of this album, it seems like this song was a self-fulfilling prophecy to some degree.
yeah.
Because as I mentioned to you, I mean, like they were pretty much
Yeah.
done at the recording of this album, and then obviously didn't last much longer after it finally came out. Actually, I guess the album didn't even come out yet before they officially broke up. But do you feel like there was any self-fulfilling prophecy in your career, good or bad, so far? And I mean with Triceratops specifically.
Mhm. That uh kids makes it harder to practice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but but at the same time, like they were the inspiration for some of our best songs.
Mm.
So, self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, maybe working with Learning Curve, maybe the way you
Yeah.
met each other, maybe the band name, anything like that.
Yeah, yeah, I think the meaning at CB's and then basically like having sort of the same basically both sharing that Nirvana revelation moment. Like we were younger than everyone else at CB's, and so they were adults when they heard Nirvana first, and it wasn't as like doesn't get like laced into your DNA in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
You
Right.
know, they for like that first song, that first practice where we wrote the song, like that felt prophetic in the sense that like Josh and I really Melvin and I really link up or just have very similar sensibilities. Like and when we wanted like most of the ideas, it's rare we disagree when it comes to uh so if somebody's really passionate about idea, the other person usually thinks it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
You
Okay.
know?
Yeah. And being a two beast, that's great
Yeah.
because then you
Yeah,
have
yeah.
very little to argue about.
There you go.
Either it gets done or it doesn't get done.
Yes, there you go. Um, but I think calling ourselves the Triceratops, obviously we're a two-person band,
Oh, yeah.
the three-horned dinosaur. Yeah, I don't know. The name, like we were just floating around a lot of different things. I guess when I was a kid, like carnivores and herbivores with dinosaurs sort of like broke down on good guy, bad guy lines.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought like the Triceratops was the coolest good guy. He's the only one who could beat T-Rex in a fight.
Mm.
Um, so the only herbivore. So uh and I'm vegetarian, Josh is vegan, so yeah,
Okay. Kind of
there's
makes
that.
sense.
Yeah.
Melvin, did you have anything to input as far as like if you think there was any self-fulfilling prophecy that you guys were that achieved?
Um, no, I can't think of anything like that. I also never thought about that for that song, and now I'm trying to analyze the we express ourselves in loud and fashionable ways. That's that song, right? Here's
Yeah.
no secret for
Is it? I
you
don't
men
remember. I
to
don't
Yes,
know
it
it
is.
lyrically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
I've always loved that. That's a real climax of the whole record for me.
hmm,
It's like that one, it just opens up and it's so anthemic,
uh,
Hmm.
Um,
I I think like this record has like a subtitle, which is something like a
Oh yeah,
chimerical
Chimerical and 12 short bursts or something.
bombination.
A
yeah,
chimerical
Bombination.
abomination in 12 bursts.
Yeah,
yeah,
so
yeah.
I assume bombination is instead of combination, like what you're
Oh, I
saying,
thought it was like an assault.
like what I think probably both. What you're like, this is sort of like my mind's kind of blown by this because like you could one way of like looking at it from that perspective, you can see is a band flying apart, you know, all these disparate elements, going, and then there is something like so it creates like this chimerical tension, you know.
Mm-hmm. Actually, so the definition of chimerical is of a mythical animal formed from parts of various animals. And then
Yeah, that's
bombination means the act or sound of humming or buzzing.
huh.
Huh.
Yeah,
So a coalescing of sound.
Okay, so well,
yeah,
all
I
right,
guess so.
cool. Um,
Basically, they're saying this is 12 songs.
yeah, but like so the chimera couldn't stick together. Um,
Right, right. Or a different kind of interpretation of that would be if you use it in biology, like the
oh,
relating to or denoting an organism containing a mixture of genetically different tissues formed by process such as fusion or early embryos, grafting, or mutation. Uh,
cool.
yeah. So I mean,
I
essentially, it's like the mixing of things. You're
Yeah.
making something out of multiple different elements.
I've never dug into that. Like I've read it thousands of times. I've never thought to look up those words or
Yeah.
question what that means,
Happy to
I
help.
just yeah, thank you. To me, like if I processed it at all, I probably read it as chemical, like
Right, right. Yeah. All right. Well, look, there's only one more point I'd like to make, and it comes with the song "The Shape of Punk to Come."
Mhm.
There's a quote from Dennis Lixen, I believe is how you pronounce his name. It says, "quote We could have called the record 'Fuck You.'" Uh, and this was at the time of the record's 20th anniversary. Quote, "There was a lot of contempt in that title, and it fitted the vibe of what we were trying to do, which was to break free from the constraints of the scene." End quote.
Huh.
So what could you say about the title of your debut album, Charge?
Oh, well, um, we want this to feel driving or like we when we play like we have this sense of momentum, even like sonically switching things up makes the album a breezier listen. And also just like every time we get on stage, we want to give absolutely everything we have. Like we when we played the Caterwall Fest and somebody had to run and hold the amps because we were the bountiest band there apparently, like, and so from our pogoing stuff that was gonna, and Josh Melvin really hits the drums very hard, so we almost knocked the amps off the stage and we're very proud of that.
Nice.
So so yeah, so I guess, and it has an exclamation point just because it's it tells you how you should say it. And and also my old band Strikes Again had an exclamation point at the end of the name, so
Okay.
is it true to that?
I don't think I ever thought about the name. I think John was like the record's called Charge, and I said okay. You know,
It's like that's fine with me. Okay.
Yep.
yeah.
Well, I mean,
It
it works in a different number of different ways, I guess, because if your band's called the Triceratops, as a matter of fact, I think when I
yeah.
first saw your like like bio promo thing, I think I read it all together, like the Triceratops charge.
Oh, yeah.
Um, which, it makes sense. I mean, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
it's got a little bit of a militant vibe to it. It's you kind of think about old uh cartoons where it's just like, go
mhm.
charge.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's just like you're kind of like charging into war or you're taking
Mhm.
on someone or something.
And but you're talking to people on your team as well. It's like everybody, let's charge together.
Right,
Um,
you're bringing everybody together for
y-
a unified cause.
yeah, or yeah, or just or yes, a unified experience. but charge is something you say to your comrades, to your allies,
Right. Right.
and so that's sort of the feeling we want to generate.
Right. Plus your music is, as you said, it's driving. It's definitely energetic and exciting. So it's got that
Thank
going
you.
for it as well.
Great, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very excited to speak with you guys. I spoke with somebody recently where I made a point to, tell them and let other people know, obviously, that your band happens to be one of these things where I just kind of got an unsolicited promo, an
Oh,
advanced copy of the record. And when you're approached with like new music out of the blue, no friend tells you about it, no one's suggesting it to you, you're just given something, you're just like, here's some new music. Tell us what you think. Um, you don't get through it. But like if it doesn't immediately grab you, you do not listen to it. You just be like, nope, not interested in that. I mean, I assume you guys would feel the same way. I mean, I'm not sure if in
yeah.
your line of
Yeah.
work
Oh,
that happens to you
yeah.
often, but
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Well, thank you. Yeah. We
Well, he didn't say that our record does that yet.
oh.
no, it did.
Good.
It
Yeah,
did.
Okay,
I
good.
definitely relate.
That's,
No, you
yeah,
we
same
wouldn't be
here.
having this conversation if I didn't listen to the record and I didn't like it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
That means a lot. And especially from, learning about your taste from listening to the pod, that's great. Thank you very much.
Sure. Well, I mean, like, we're also like kind of creatures of habit.
Yeah.
I think like yeah, I think you were saying earlier how like you only, fairly recently kind of got into newer albums by bands that you've known about for
Yeah.
decades.
Yeah, yeah, and then through learning curve, and playing Caterwaul, like that has been a great source for us, of new music to find, new music to listen to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, learning
I
curve.
find myself listening to the same thing. I listened to one Gunship record for over a year straight. Like I don't think another sound seeped in. I
Wow.
just
Okay.
yeah. Like,
That's cool.
um I don't know if it's cool, but it's just what I had to do, you know?
Yeah, no, it's fine.
And then sometimes I'll really like I'll be on Noise Rock Now, like a Facebook group, and I'll be like, I'll listen to this band, and then I'm gonna save this post and I check them out after, and I'll listen to a whole bunch of new music in a row. But yeah, getting through a whole record is rare.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But and so it speaks to, the appeal of it is that like if you can put something on and get through 30 seconds and want to listen to more, it's a probably a pretty good litmus test of a good album.
Cool. Yeah, it needs to catch you in 30 seconds. So I'm glad it did.
Yeah, no problem.
I think
Um,
you're a unique music absorber. Like
yeah,
I'm very impressed with the homework you've done on this record.
sure.
Like
Thank you.
because you said you never heard of it before
Nope.
we said we wanted to talk about it, and you like lyrics and parts of it very well. I'm just sort of like, this guy
Yeah.
did his homework, like
Well,
that's
I like
rare,
I
like
liked that record too. So it made it easier. I mean, like, there's definitely things about it that I have neglected to mention and so forth. I mean, there's a lot there. There's a lot in the history,
Yeah.
but I only have like bullet points to make really. So
Yeah.
the the primary thing is, get some bring some
But
attention and some new ears to you guys and to your new record because it's a
thank
great
you.
one.
but
So
you also know like trivia about the record that like I
Yeah.
don't know, talk to John from Bangladeshi about the Downward Spiral, like
yeah.
like he knew too though like
Oh
he would
yeah.
like these like deep like facts about it, and I was like, I had no idea, and you guys just like chatting about it. I was like, how do these guys know this?
Yeah.
Just
But yeah,
write
like
about it. You
I
got you got
don't
to
even know
nerd
that.
out, man.
What?
I don't even know my favorite drummer's name. So I just
Well, in terms of this record, one more thing I just want to definitely mention is that the they do the whole epic is second to last. Like the 7 minute song is second to last,
Hmm.
and then you end with a quiet one.
Right.
And that's what we did.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
like for some reason the epic feels like the second to last song. That's where it should be. I
Mm.
don't know like in general, like I found.
Yeah. That's an interesting kind of perspective. I wasn't thinking about that, but yeah, I guess that makes sense.
I
Yeah.
I do think that song has, of all the songs, I mean, musically the record's been very influential. You hear it more with my other band, Fashion Week, but that lyrically, that one line where in the spoken word part, which I don't think you get away with now, not that you wouldn't get away with it, but just I don't think anyone would do that now. But the he says like even the decisions that you don't make, and I'm just sort of like I struggle with decision paralysis
Hmm.
like every day, and I always think about that lyric and just be like, just fucking decide, man, like just do it. And I would say that line has influenced me for over 20 years. Like I think about that like every day I think about that lyric.
Hmm. Wow. Okay. Cool. Well, obviously this was very important to you guys, so I'm happy to have spoken with you guys about it. Can you tell me what's up for the band now? Like, obviously you have your record release party happening in 2 days, I think.
Hmm. 2 days, and then we've got the 22nd, the 23rd, and 24th. We're
Right. Richmond, Baltimore, DC.
Of
yeah.
November.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So
And then we don't have anything else booked at all.
It's a bad
yeah,
time. Holiday
yeah,
seasons,
yeah.
winter. We don't want to do it.
We don't want
Yeah.
to
But
get
the
around on
record
the
is
ice.
out now officially,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
And you also have it on vinyl.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's it's a pretty great feeling to have a record, to have a vinyl.
Yeah.
Like this is my first time getting pressed my or with songs I wrote on on vinyl, and it's
I've got it
cool experience to
framed
hold.
framed on the wall behind my phone.
Nice. Cool, man. Well, congratulations on it. I mean, it's
Thank
being
you.
released through Learning Curve Records,
Hmm.
and I imagine I'll find all the links for it to put into the show notes
Oh,
where
thank
people
you.
can pick it up. But as far as tour dates are concerned, you get those 3 shows coming up, and then yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. Hopefully, people will find you. Hopefully, you'll make it out to some other regional acts, regional areas. I'm in Rhode Island. I'm not very far,
Okay.
so
Yeah, we're
you're
definitely
welcome.
looking around there. Okay. Absolutely. We'd love to.
What are you doing with your cat, man? What's happening?
Oh, geez. She is. I was looking something. Oh, yeah. She was put her face
Yeah.
right over the camera there.
Cat antics. Gotta love it.
Mhm.
All right, guys. Well, look,
Oh,
I gotta get going. Thanks for doing this. I appreciate
yeah.
speaking to you. I really appreciate getting to know you guys better, and we'll hook up. We'll hook up in the future.
All
Thank you
right.
so much.
Thank you. We'll
All
see
right,
you
no
later.
problem, guys.